Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. I have a good friend here, talented filmmaker, director, producer, Tristian Chandra. How are you, buddy?
Howdy, partner. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. We've been connected through Instagram for a while, and this is the first time we're kind of like, screen to screen, I guess, face to face,
Yeah,
virtually,
this is
talking.
yeah, it's been a very 21st century friendship, I guess.
Yeah, it has. To give you guys some context, some background, Tristan and I have been friends for a while, around the time just before the pandemic started,
Yeah,
2020, around that time. And I remember, I was just posting some content and I get a DM from him saying, do you want to be part of this kind of like Instagram film enthusiasts group, where everyone just kind of supports each other's content and, helps promote their brands. And I said, yeah, why not? It'd be a great community to be part of. And nevertheless, it became known as IG Soldiers,
yes, yes, sir.
right?
Yeah,
And yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, just to get right into it,
yeah.
what was the inspiration behind creating this group?
I think I think that just finding a community of people that have similar interests in you is just kind of like an important thing just to have is whatever it may be, whether you're a filmmaker, a painter, athlete, whatever, I think you got to kind of have a good, kind of foundation and good base and people to kind of motivate you. And I think it's hard to really move forward in any kind of way if you don't have someone else who's like interested or doing the same things as you, who are like kind of pushing you in a way. Not that there's any competition, I don't think, and we all do very separate things. Like you said, the majority of the group is just kind of a film enthusiast thing.
Right.
But you in particular, like I remember reaching out to you because I'm like, oh, I feel like we're very much alike, and we kind of have a similar path in terms of career goals or what we're interested in. And we might be the only two actual like quote unquote filmmakers in even in that group. But
I believe so. Yeah.
yeah, so it really was just kind of pages I liked first and foremost, and then
Nice.
after that, just people I wanted to connect with and have
Yeah, and I'm so
connect
happy you did. Yeah, I'm so happy you did, and you hit it right on the head. Like, just we share like the same kind of charisma, the drive, and our characters. Like, we're just like the group is so civil. Everyone's
with.
respectful.
Yeah.
And good on you. Reaching out, kind of recruiting the right people.
Yeah.
Because I made some great friends. If you're listening to this, like Seventh Film and
Yeah.
Every Shot in Film and
Shout out to Dino. That's a good.
yeah, shout out to yeah, exactly. Shout out to the film critic and just amazing, amazing guys and just so supportive with all our content. I have to say, I was trying to be unconventional from the beginning. Well, I started with film reviews, like I used to do my Film Obsessed, and then I just started like putting stuff that I created, like with films, because I said, why not show you glimpses of what I intend to create in the future, right? And that's why I did the artworks and the short clips. And I want to just thank you, man, for really giving me that opportunity to be part of this community. It really means a lot to me.
Yeah, of course. No, and thank you for joining, just being interested. I could have said
Yeah.
that out and everyone would have been like, "Yo, piss off, bro. Leave me alone, man."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's cool, and to have it reciprocated by you and all the rest of the guys that that are in the group.
Yeah, it's so important to be grateful for these experiences, and I think it's I'm sure you can agree. Like this journey of filmmaking, it's so crazy, it's unpredictable, and just meeting the right people, meeting the people that share the same interests, like you said, but are also the same values, respectful and courteous and things like that. It's just so important, and the fact that we found this community is quite exceptional.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so what was your early experiences in film that drove you to become or like involved in filmmaking?
You know, I it hasn't been until like retrospect when I look back that film was
Right.
kind of always there. But like growing up, I played hockey. That was like my first thing. I was like, I'm gonna be in the NHL. I was like this, that. And then I kind of got into music in like high school. And that really took over me. And I became a huge like playing in bands, like just
Right.
obsessed with that world. And that was my whole thing then for a while. Like, oh, I'm gonna be in a touring band, this, that. And if not that, I'll be a producer. And then I want to say I was probably like 19 or 20 years old when I started just watching a lot of movies solely just to like understand like pop culture references, like in TV or like with friends, like jokes, like, at the time I probably had never seen like The Godfather or Taxi Driver or Pulp Fiction or whatever. And I was like, I should just watch these movies. And I started watching a ton one summer. And then I remember coming across the movie Blue Velvet that changed my life. And at that point, that's when I was like, I need to do, like, what the hell was this? I was like, this is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this. And at that point I was like, how is this, like, who? And that's when I thought, I was like, maybe the director is the person who's like doing this. So I started thinking about it in that way. And but also, like I said, kind of looking back, like as a kid, I found like a script like in an old backpack of mine that I wrote when I was like 8, like a little short script. And friends, like making little shorts, and like with my cousins when I was like 5, we made like 8 sequels to one like
Oh,
little
wow.
movie
That's
we made.
amazing. Yeah.
It was like, now I look back, I was like, oh, it was always there. I was always into it, but consciously not until I was like 20 years old. I was like, maybe I could do this for like a career, maybe, you know.
Yeah,
But up
for
until then,
sure.
no.
And yeah, and that's what leads to, like for me, the big thing I have to mention is Pulp Fiction. That's why I created 94 Productions, and that's why I kind of gave it the name. I was born in 94.
Oh, nice.
And Pulp Fiction was the one, like my Blue Velvet, where
Yeah.
it was like that changed my life, like in the sense of how I saw films, I should say. It took me a while. It wasn't like an instant um, classic for me, or just I fell in love with it. But I started to understand like the genius behind it and why people enjoyed it. And I started to see that there's another side to filmmaking. And that's what introduced me to my hero, Quentin Tarantino. And then that's when the game really changed, because before that time, as a child, as a teenager, you're watching like Spielberg movies. You're watching very like, Forrest Gump, Back to the Future, nothing too crazy, still great pieces of storytelling. And then you just watch these
Yeah.
Tarantino movies and they go completely left field. And you just see how much he challenges the art form, and it challenges the viewer to think of the possibilities. And since that day, I fell in love with it. And that's why I decided, I guess, to create my production company, 94, to commemorate that year and also the year I was born, which leads me to
Yeah.
my, yeah, what's up, man?
No, I was just saying, I feel like you probably were like kind of like me, where it's like, even before that, like you could tell the difference between a good movie and a bad movie.
Of
But
course.
like, once you see that, it's just like, oh, there's like an identity behind this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, there is. And that's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, is a motivation of mine, why I uh, got into films, and why I kind of strive towards creating, like making my films be part of a brand. Like it's become Daniel Calderon, right? Like when you watch it, you think of me, you think of 94 Productions. It reminds me of like a documentary I recently watched with Billie Eilish and on Apple TV, and she was saying, I don't want people to talk about my music saying it's pop, saying it's reggae, saying it's country. I want it to be like, that's Billie Eilish music. And I can relate to that. I think you can relate to that too as a filmmaker, like with a unique voice, is you want people to think of it as a Tristian Chandra film, right? Or Mandalay Social Club. Like just having that association is so important. Um, and yeah, that's what leads me to my next point, is Mandalay Social Club is
Yeah.
the name of your video production company.
Yes.
And where you've been putting a lot of stylistic and entertaining content that I've been enjoying, particularly with the music videos. Um, a lot of great stuff, man. And I want to know, like, how did you get the name of your company first off?
Yeah. Well, Mandalay Avenue is a street on Clearwater Beach in my hometown, and that's just somewhere, like growing up, like every weekend we're there, like during the summer, every single day. Like I go there, and it's just, I feel like that's me,
Right.
right on Mandalay Ave. And I don't even remember like if there was a single moment where I was like brainstorming ideas or something, and I was like, Mandalay, this, that. I feel like it just kind of, like many of like the great ideas you get for like films or videos or whatever, it just out of nowhere just kind of pops in your head. And then
Right.
I was like, oh, that's pretty tight. I was like, Mandalay Social Club sounds pretty cool. And and at first it wasn't even just solely a video production company. At first I didn't even know what it was. I just knew I wanted a space to like put out creative stuff. Like I was making like instrumental little EPs and like just blogging stuff. Like I thought I was like Vice or something. And like just putting out all these articles and like video. It was just, I didn't even know what it was. And then
Right.
even once I like narrowed it down to like film specifically, I even thought about changing it, but I feel like film is a very social thing in a way. It's very solitary in that the fact you can watch it alone, but I feel like if a film's truly effective, it's going to make you want to talk about it with somebody, and like it's going to create a dialogue of some kind. And I'm not saying I had this consciously flowing through my mind
Of
at the
course.
time when I thought of this, but
Yeah.
it's something I look back, I'm like, it does fit regardless, because I want something I make to be something that turns into something very social for people. But really
Yeah.
the main
Thought provoking.
exactly.
Thought provoking content. That's what comes to mind. What you were describing, and yeah, it's. I'm glad you said that again, because with film, it's so important. That's what we strive for, or the best filmmaker is the one with the great intentions. Is you want to have your film not only be rewatchable, but rewatchable for the right reasons, because people want to learn more about it, or when they leave the screen, they're asking the questions, and it sits with them.
Exactly. Whether
Yeah,
it's good or bad too, or whether you like it or like, they have that, like you brought up Quentin earlier. Like I remember when I first saw Once Upon a Time, I hated it the first time, but I could not stop talking about it to
right,
anyone who would listen. I was like, I can't stand this movie, and you're going to listen to me tell you why I don't like it. And then I
right.
go back a second time, I was like, okay, this is
Yeah,
pretty good. And then the third time, like, okay, this might be one of his best. But
exactly.
whether how you feel, if it's effective in that way, you can't help but just talk about it all the time.
Yeah, hate him or love him. Pulp Fiction, same concept. I
And
First time I watched it, I hated it. I was so annoyed. People were like, "Oh, the dialogue is so rich," and to me, it was like it's just people talking about, you know, pigs and like swines, and you know what I mean, like Royale with cheese, $5 milkshakes. It was just not making nonsense to me. And then like I said, I started reading articles and analyzing it, and I think it wasn't until I started taking up the appreciate like writing myself, like my own stories, like screenplays, that you started to realize, like, first of all, writing is not easy at all. And then you start hearing how these characters talk and interact, and how the dialogue feels like it's just being sung.
yeah,
And that's what I mean by you discover the genius, and you say, okay, this is why they're giving him credit. Is you
exactly.
have an appreciation as a writer, or someone who's aspiring to be a writer, that it's not an easy task, and this guy pulls it off like without even looking effortlessly, right?
Yeah,
And that is, I should say, the genius is Pulp Fiction. You're not supposed to overanalyze it. You're not supposed to say, what does this dialogue foreshadow?
yeah,
It's people talking, and the reason why you love it, or you're maybe annoyed by it, is because it's just day-to-day conversations that is believable. And
yeah,
that's the plausibility, right? Because they
absolutely.
try to do it in movies all the time,
Yeah,
shooting the shit, and you could pick off the bat between the acting and the way it's being spoken. This is so contrived. Like, why are
yeah,
they making small talk? I hate, like, I see it all the time. I get it, I detect it, you
yeah.
know. And in his movies, it's like, yeah, keep talking about why you hate that
It's
burger. You know
flawless.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think like literally one of the best examples of that too is the opening scene of Reservoir Dogs, which is still my favorite like Tarantino movie. But the opening where they're just talking about Madonna and talking about like what like a virgin means, and they're banging out. It's like, oh no, she's sucked a million dicks or whatever it may be, and it's just like, what are they
exactly.
talking about? But I like keep on rewinding and just listen to them talk about Madonna and what she means when she talks about like a virgin.
Yeah,
So,
it's so compelling, it's so intriguing, and this is what you meant by your kind of like intention, your vision for Mandalay Social Club, is having that conversation, creating films that people have that
mhm,
dialogue, or invested in the dialogue that you're sharing with them on the screen.
right.
Which gets me to my next point about what kind of projects are you focusing on as a filmmaker right now with this production company?
Yeah, right now, at least in 2021, and it was weird just to say that out loud because I was talking about it actually earlier with a buddy of mine. I haven't
Right.
shot a music video in 2021 yet at all. And I've just been kind of rebranding and reworking Mandalay, but my biggest focus right now is a short film that I wrote and will be
Nice.
directing. And obviously when we're at this stage, we're kind of doing everything. Like I'm also the producer, I'm also the production assist. So it's
Of course,
it's
man.
pre-production phase
You're
where
the
like
editing
wearing a million
sometimes.
hats.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's what I'm focused on right now, and it's a big change because this will be my first time working with a full legit like crew, and like
Nice.
here and there I've worked with like sound guys, and I've learned so. I mean, just one night of working with a sound recordist and a boom op, I learned so much. I was like, oh, that's how you slate a scene. I was like, oh, like I would like they're probably like, why is this? Who is this guy? Like, why is he doing?
Yeah, yeah, of course,
But
of course, yeah.
so like I'm super stoked because I know like now working with other crew members and other people, it's like I'm stoked because I'm gonna learn so much and I can only get better by doing that.
It's true.
And so I'm really kind of only focusing on this for now. And then once I finish that, just getting back into the music videos with kind of a new fresh mind where I'm not doing everything myself anymore, which it can be fun, but you hit a ceiling at some point where when you're a one-man crew, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well, it's just
Yes,
like,
of course.
dude, it's like now I'm negating like some of the DP duties because I'm worrying about the lighting here, or I'm negating the directing because I'm so focused about the camera movement. And it comes to a point where you got to delegate, and that's kind of where I'm at now. Is just kind of expanding the brand as a whole by kind of creating a crew and a network of people to work together to really like more effectively, I guess, kind of meet the vision or whatever.
Yeah, tell the story.
Yeah.
It's very interesting what you said, because that's something that I've kind of contemplated, like just struggled with. And, like I said, I started 94 Productions, and you start off as, every independent filmmaker knows, you start off as like a one-man crew, unless you have a partnership with someone. But most likely it's just yourself, your vision, and you're doing all the jobs. I've been fortunate in situations like my last short film I shot last summer. Um, they wanted me as a director and a cinematographer, so I was able to do both. I didn't mind it because I was
Right.
able to control like the shots, and I even edited it. So I edited like how I saw, what I mean, like the shots and how the narrative was. But the intention is exactly what you said, is eventually you're going to hit that ceiling, and you want to collaborate with people that you trust and are talented enough that can pull off your vision even more so that you can with the camera alone.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with, like you said, with just constantly networking and constantly creating projects. That's the only way you're going to meet new people. Budgeting, that's a huge concern. Another issue, a factor that you have to take into consideration. Like I'm learning about funding and trying to
Yeah.
get projects, and you have to partner too. Like you can't take advantage of those partnerships because they seek certain um, people being on board those projects, right? Whether it's from a racial standpoint, cultural, things like that. So I've been fortunate, I've been grateful that way, to be connected with those people. But I can relate exactly to what you're saying is, you hit that ceiling, and I'm so happy that you have that opportunity now, that you're not wearing so many hats, because it's so tough, it's so strenuous, and it takes a toll on the vision, really.
Yeah. And I mean, there's obviously like certain things that's like, I still like directing has always been my main thing. So it's like,
Yeah,
if I want to be better as a director, I need to allow a cinematographer whose whole passion is cinematography
yeah,
to like let them like take the wheel. I have a shot list. I know what it needs to look like. I have everything, but you got to be able to give it to people who are better than you in certain
yeah.
things. If you want it to look better, and obviously still some things I'd like to do, I will always feel like I feel like most things that I do, and edit too. You mentioned editing. That's a huge thing. I'm like, I won't color it anymore or grade it because I'm not very good at that. But
Yeah, yeah.
in terms of editing and chopping it up, I couldn't even imagine passing that off to somebody else. Like they don't know what I'm looking for.
See, yeah, and I'm thank you for saying that, because I don't know if it's probably because we're not at that stage yet, but
Yeah, yeah.
like when you direct it, you know what I mean? You have to get the right editor, and I think that's why Tarantino, Scorsese, they have someone that only them who they work with. And if you hear how they talk right in interviews, they sit with them. It's not like they say,
Oh yeah.
"Send me the cut." They sit with them, and that's a sign that they don't have maybe the expertise to know how to put it all together, but they're
Yeah.
telling them like, "Remember that shot? Put it in this area." You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because it's the
Follow it
vision
up with
needs to
this
be,
and then this. Yeah.
and you get an editor that respects that, and you're making magic. Because the last thing you want is an editor to be like, let me do my stuff, walk out of the room. You want them to be like, no, I need to listen to what, because at the end of the day, they're creative, but to a certain extent, you want to listen to what the director's saying, the vision, what he had in mind.
Yeah, because at that point, then it becomes like like there's a lot of different stages. Like when you start out writing something, it kind of like, unless you are the writer, director, whatever, like that's like the writer's thing. It's like, oh, this is my story. Once the director gets his hands on it, dude, it's probably not going to be at all what you envisioned or what you thought. And if you send your stuff off to an editor, then that film is taking to a third stage of somewhere completely different, where now
Yeah.
it's not even what you did. And like I see it a lot in music videos. Like there's a ton of music video directors, I just consider them videographers, who they'll shoot some stuff. They have no composition, no shot, no nothing. And then they send it off to an editor who makes it look really cool and like world
Yeah.
story with all these effects, and it looks neat. But they're like, yeah, I directed this. It's like, dude, I can't even tell what you shot. It's just a
Yeah.
bunch of effects and edits. It's like,
Yeah.
if anything, I want to know who edited this thing. He did a sick job, you
So
know?
you made another very good point, because this is what I was kind of like having an argument, or a debate, I should say, with family or just people that view my work, they were commenting on one of those promos, because I do 94 collection, like my clothing line, and I'm starting to get into promos because I love that Adidas, Nike, that just that fashion aesthetic, right? But they were commenting and saying like, oh, like why aren't you doing like flashy kind of cuts, or like I see this video where it does transitions. And a big thing for me is I will put it if it suits the editing. You know what I mean? Like if it suits, it has to flow like the narrative, right? Like I'm not going to put a fancy cut, because I tried it and I thought maybe it was because I was hesitant or I was fearful because I couldn't pull it off, or I didn't know how to do it. But I did experiment with some of the transitions and it just didn't, you know, play out the way I wanted it to. And the reason being, I believe, is the editing is God. I can't remember where I heard it, but I took a master class and they said something like, you never dictate the story dictates you. Like if you're a true editor, like a storyteller, and you know what I'm talking about, when you're editing it, you're like listening to the flow. You're listening to, how you have that mind, but oh, that shot looks really good. Like that short film I did called Beautiful. There's an ending shot that I really wanted to use. I had it visualized, prepared. I made the actor do it. So like literally like 20 times. I saw the rough cuts of all of them, all the takes, and I'm like, nope, we're not putting that shot. It just didn't fit. And if you force it in, the audience will pick it up and say, that's why they use the terms corny or contrived, or, doesn't look right. So yeah. And if you notice, like I think a lot of people get it misconstrued, because if you see on Instagram, you see it all the time, like the sponsored ads or the sponsored posts, the flashy edits and crazy styles and stuff, unless it's done in a tasteful manner or there's some sort of story behind it, my mind drifts off. I don't know if you could say the same. Yeah. Like I just can't, I don't like the editing. Great. Like I'm glad you are talented that way, but you have something going for you, or you're a true storyteller when you watch those music videos, man, and there's just like cut after cut.
Yeah.
And there's no fancy styles or anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like I'm thinking of like, Billie Eilish's Bad Guy. Great song, music video fit the song, but they didn't need fancy edits to pull it off. It was just simple like cuts, like one after the next. But again, there's a narrative, there's some kind of story.
Exactly.
And yeah, I just that's why I wanted to bring it up, man, because I know exactly what you're saying, and I'm so happy you did, because it's refreshing. Like sometimes you think as a filmmaker, as a director, like, oh, should I start experimenting and doing this? But a big thing for me is that if it doesn't fit or if it doesn't feel right, why just push it just because someone on Instagram is doing it?
Exactly. And I mean, like you said, like that's actual filmmaking. That is directing. When you don't have to rely on all these post-production, you're making the magic happen in front of the camera. And the only thing you're doing afterwards is cutting it together and then coloring it so it looks nice. But other than that, you're not adding this effect and this, and it's all grainy and all this like this footage that's randomly strewn in that makes no sense. And it's just like, what am I even watching right now? Like I feel like I'm having a stroke. Like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly. And it takes away, and people don't realize it takes away from the music, because your brain is so focused on what's happening on the screen in a bad way, where it's like, like I don't feel the music. It doesn't flow with the transitions, the beats.
Exactly. It's all just very oversaturated, because then this video just looks like the next. There's nothing different about them,
and that's something, not to shit on the genre, but I've seen it with up and coming like rappers or hip hop especially, right? Like they just pull off the typical kind of those cuts. And like if you look, sorry, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say, I call them pull up and shoot videos.
Pull up and shoot,
me in the kitchen, and then we'll put effects. It's like, no, dog, like I don't want to do that, like at all.
Yeah, like, good for you for holding your ground. Yeah, because you want to, you have a story in your head, and you have how they turn and whatever. Obviously, you're gonna have times where, like, I'm a big fan of keep the camera rolling. You know what I mean? Like, just do whatever. Like, the last music video I shot, it was a cross between me directing him, but at the same time, because it was just very rough, like we had to quickly get it done for a contest, and I only had like 3 hours to do it. I said, just do your thing. So he was on his phone texting, then he put it away. Then I got shots of him putting his phone away, him look, and I said, okay, look over your shoulder now. Like I would just throw in like little tips and stuff. And I got so much great footage, spontaneous shots that felt organic, because you got to keep that camera rolling. You got to capture everything. And that's where, like you said, that storytelling, the vision, the mentality plays a huge benefit, because you're able to pick those scenes for sure and put them in sequence.
And I think if you have a vision too, like, because I'm in love with improvising, like whether it be shots or even dialogue. Like my
Right.
scripts only get better when I do rehearsals with actors because I let them improv. I let them say
Hmm.
whatever. And then I film it and then I go back and I retype some of the good stuff from these rehearsals. And
Yeah.
same thing with shooting. It's like, yeah, I have a shot list, but you never know what you're going to see on the day when you're there. But if you don't even go in with any specific vision ahead of time, then it's just pointless. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you're improving, but you don't have any kind of mental direction in why or what you are improving, you know?
And I think that's why I kind of still am in love with the cinematography aspect. Like I love directing, but I also love shooting the actual footage.
Yeah.
Just knowing that because I that's why actually I should say another reason why I started 94 Productions is for a while I was always told like the cinematography, the videography, I had an eye for it.
Mhm.
And I said, let me capitalize on these skills. Like if they need it for promo videos or corporate videos or real estate. So what I'm saying is when I shot that short film, for example, last summer, I didn't mind wearing the hat. I didn't mind being the cinematographer because again, you're
Yeah.
so uh, infatuated with your own vision that you want
Yeah.
to, you don't, you know what I mean? Like you want to just be in control of those hats because you know it can play the best part. But
Exactly.
I think it's all about grinding it out at the end of the day, right? Like just keep going. And the people kind of overcomplicate filmmaking, and I used to be guilty of this, where I felt like I needed to know the right people. There was a time because I'm in Toronto that I said I need to be in LA to make movies.
Yeah.
Just things that you're taught as a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
Right? You're not even in Los Angeles yourself. You're in Atlanta, Georgia, right? Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But
So
like
it's like,
that's even why I went to Atlanta too, because I'm like, oh, the film industry moved there, so I gotta go. But like
yeah, yeah,
in real, I could live in freaking buttfuck Montana and it wouldn't matter. I could still do
exactly.
that, you know. So I don't think it matters. But yeah, continue. I don't know.
No, no, but exactly, and Atlanta, Georgia, yeah, I should say that's definitely a great industry. But again, it wouldn't. You'll meet another guy that'll say, but what about Los Angeles, right? And I learned, and I'm sure you learned too, right? Where it's like you can create anything uh, as long as you have the vision. Especially nowadays, where we have the affordable equipment and we have social media. Look at us, right? I'm from Toronto, you're from Tampa originally, but you're in Atlanta, and we connected, and we
Yeah.
connected on the same level. And I didn't need to be in Los Angeles. I didn't need to be part of an agency or no Tarantino. And that's the genesis of a friendship, right? Like that's how of a collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think it's just so important to that whole idea of picking up a camera, just shooting whatever you believe in. And along the lines, from my experience, because I never went to film school,
Yeah.
people like yourself will gravitate to you. People that
Yeah.
are talented, people that share the same vision, people have their own stories to tell.
Yeah.
And your situation, you'll find, the lighting guy, you'll find the sound guy, you'll find all these people because over time, can you work on this project? You meet this guy, then you do a project, you post something online, he wants to do something. So I think it's so important that people just take that risk if they really want to be a filmmaker, pick up that camera and just shoot anything,
For
right?
sure. I mean, and like you said about overthinking, like it's as easy as going on Google, like just having an internet connection. I
Yeah.
could find 100 cinematographers within a 20-mile radius of me at any
Yeah.
given moment. You know what I mean? Or like we mentioned, like Dino from Every Shot of Painting, that Instagram page. I like put a post on my story. I was like, hey, I'm looking for a colorist. He hit me up, like he introduced me to the person who I'm more than
Nice.
likely going to be using as my colorist on the short film. And we chatted, and he was a great dude, and I felt like we could collaborate well. But again, that's something that very randomly was a suggestion from just somebody I met who lives in Germany. You know what I mean? And
That's amazing. Yeah.
it's a really crazy, weird thing. And sometimes I think about like what some of these older filmmakers, like someone like Kubrick or Hitchcock or whatever, like imagine if they were alive now or like coming up at like our age now. It's like, dude, it wouldn't even be fair. Like with the amount of resources, what they could make, like it would
Yeah.
not be fair for anyone.
Yeah.
And like I think about them, I'm like, God, I wish like they could have made something in 2020. Like it would have been so crazy. But yeah, we
Yeah,
have a
man.
lot at our fingertips.
No, it's so true, man. And that's like, I'm sure you're no stranger to this about, having either your doubts or, there's days where they're better than others, right? Where you're just kind of like, is this the path for me or what am I doing kind of thing? Because it gets overwhelming. That's a big thing for me, man. Like it just sometimes like I've been going through my own little phase, especially because where I'm living, we're going through our third lockdown, which is crazy. So, but what I'm saying is like, you have to, like I said, take advantage of those resources
Oh, yeah.
And just be grateful that you have those resources. Really, like, don't let them overwhelm you. Like, if you really, like you said, in dire need of a cinematographer and you can't pick up the camera yourself, I'm the kind of guy where it's like, don't even hire. Like, if you really want to make that film happen, or you
Yeah,
don't have
just
the
do it.
money, or you don't, you're like, don't know how to connect with these people or network, just do it yourself. Like, that's kind of like how I did it. Very rough. Like, I just picked up a camera and started shooting like some short films, and then I used that as a
Absolutely. Yeah.
networking thing. But you're right, like, there's so many avenues that you can take it. And just to see, yeah, Kubrick and Hitchcock, all those guys, Sergio Leone and like
Yeah.
Francis Ford Coppola, like in their prime. Can you imagine just like creating bangers after bangers? Because they were considered or like true independent directors, whatever that meant for their
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And even if they were independent, like, they were independent because their budget wasn't as big, but we're like the independent ones because it's like we're create like the amount of films that we're creating out of like our bare hands practically, right?
It's insane.
Yeah. It's a different time. And
People are
yeah,
shooting
I
movies on their
what's up?
iPhones.
Yeah. No,
Like,
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, people, I think that's a preferred method of watching.
yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah,
So weird.
I personally love the whole theater experience, which I'll
I
get
do.
into this point. Yeah. So what's going on? Like, do you think theaters are gonna die with this whole pandemic, or you're hoping not?
I I don't know. At least out here, and I don't know how it is in Toronto or in Canada as a whole, but at
Right.
least out here, theaters have been back open for a little bit. And I've gone a few times. I think the first movie, I think it was like when Tenet came out. Like when was that? Like September, October?
Yeah, I believe so.
That's when like movie theaters started kind of open up again. And I was kind of like, oh, should I go? Should I not? Whatever. But then not only are they all doing like the limited seating, but like on top of that, because of the fear, like I'm not joking you, I was the only person on the day that Tenet came out, the only person in that theater. I was the only one. And I was like, this is amazing. I could go to movies like this for the rest of my life. I was like, this is
That's
great.
insane, man. Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's unfortunate that some more independent theater chains, they might not be able to survive, which are kind of the theaters that, or I'm sorry, they're not chains at all, but these independent theaters are the ones that like they don't have the capital like an AMC or a Regal or whatever. And it's,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like they might stay afloat maybe, but these independent theaters is more what I'm concerned about. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of them have at least a strong enough support system where it's like, hey, we bought a bunch of gift cards. They're doing like virtual screenings and just, I think things like that that might keep them afloat for a bit. But I'm just more concerned about like technology progressing being the reason that it like kicks out like these movie theaters even more than the pandemic, I would say, just because it's weird. People don't like going to the movie theaters, I guess, anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
it's so
it's just so
strange. It's
weird
our
to me.
generation, man. It's
Yeah,
they love the comfort of being in it, watching a film at home. But
yeah,
it's fine and all. Like, there are some movies that definitely deserve to be on a screen, whether they're poorly done or
yeah,
because they're just a TV movie. Like, you just watch it and you have a good time, and they're not like a Tenet. Like, you need
exactly.
that surround sound or that huge 100-inch screen TV.
Yeah,
But for me, it's all about the experience, whether it's an independent film, whether it's an action blockbuster. I just love the idea of going into the audience. That's why one of the big reasons I fell in love with movies and I wanted to be a filmmaker is there is something, it's like a drug, that action, the audience's reaction, like the gasp and the sigh, or them, sobbing, or just simply saying like, how did he do that? Like, I love watching movies. That's what gave me goosebumps when I would watch movies, especially like a Tarantino, and they'd be like, oh, that opening scene with Inglourious Basterds, Christoph Waltz killed it. Like, I live for that. And it's like, imagine if people were talking that way about mine. I don't know if it's some kind of egotistical thing, but I definitely like just live off of that
for sure.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, because it's a very kind of like almost like a religious experience in a way. It's like going to a church. People feel very moved by like music or worship or whatever in a church, but it's like, and that's their interest. But movies as well is very much that same way. You all gather together in this dark room and you watch this massive thing, and it's like, even beyond just thinking of like my favorite movies of the year, I always like to think about like my favorite like movie going, like theater going experience of the year.
Yeah.
Like I remember watching Midsommar when it came out like 2 years ago. Whenever I was like, like a great movie. It wasn't like my favorite of when was that 2019, but I was like,
Yeah.
that was the best theater experience I had. Like I felt like I was floating out of the chair just based on the way that Ari Aster directed it and cut it, and
Yeah.
That's something you can't get at home. Like, I don't care if you have a flat screen 70
Yeah.
inch, if you can't get that at home. Like,
Yeah.
it's a completely, I don't know. If it goes away, I'll be pretty pissed. I can't
Oh
lie.
yeah, no,
I'll be
100%,
pissed.
man. And if it goes away in the States, it'll definitely go away in Canada. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because we follow your market. And, I just want to go back to what you were saying about that movie is there's even like those details people miss. It's not about like the screen. It's not about, the sound. It's the little things. You're in a dark room. Subconsciously, you can't use your phone out of being
Mhm.
courteous. Even when you went with Tenant, right? By
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
I doubt that phone was being taken out because it's just so intimidating. It's so, it just consumes you that you have no right, like right now, it's like an addiction, right? Especially because we're home, it's only amplified. We're always looking at our phone, thinking about it. Did someone text me? Someone call me? Even when I watch a movie, I can't get through it because I'm always looking at my phone.
I
You know what I
know.
mean? And when you're in the theater, it's like sanctuary. You're just like in your zen, you're just watching
If
it.
it really forces you to like really
It
pay
forces
attention
you.
more than you would
Yeah.
otherwise.
And if you hear a buzz like in the phone, like obviously I check the phone like for a time, but I'll never like take it out and actually stare at it and scroll through because again,
I
other
know.
than the fact of being courteous, you just don't do it. You're in that setting. Like your brain's just, but majority of our generation, man, unfortunately don't think like that, right? Like people just rather have that convenience. And I've had these conversations on the podcast before
Yeah.
you came on. And again, unfortunately, again, there's a lot of people that our age that are okay with it. They said, yeah, like if I can watch it at home, and
Yeah.
it disturbs me in a way because it's like how could you do that storytelling justice? Like
No.
Frances McDormand at the Oscars, right? She said it in her acceptance speech. She's like, "In all these movies you see, I hope you watch them in the theaters, or you better watch them in the theaters and not on your phone." And I
Mhm.
and I felt that. I know what she means. It's like, dude, these poor filmmakers, man, they had to like settle for that.
Yeah, and that's like no filmmaker sets out with the intention like, oh yeah, can't wait for someone to watch this on their freaking iPhone 10s.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this needs to be seen on a big screen. Like, I remember talking to a buddy who's like, oh yeah, I just watched that movie on my phone last night. I just looked, I was like, what the fuck did you just say? I was like, you watched a movie on your phone, like when you have a TV in your home,
What
like,
did you just say to me?
yeah, I was like, why would you do that? And I have watched, like, I remember distinctly, like, I was flying somewhere, I don't even remember where, but it was when Marriage Story came out, and I was like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
I've been dying to watch it, and I watched it on my phone, and I kind of felt like weird about it too
of
because I'm just
course.
so pompous about that, but like it's still like I was literally crying in this airplane next to some random grown man stranger. Like I'm
I
just in
believe it.
tears
I
watching
believe it.
a
Yeah,
movie,
man. Yeah.
from my
Same thing
phone.
for me.
So yeah, yeah, I think
Happened to
that
me too. Yeah. When I watched it, it was such a powerful, and this is what I mean by like, obviously it wasn't written by Tarantino, but great execution, great writer.
yeah, shout out
Um,
to Noah Baumbach. He's a hell of a writer.
yeah, hell of a
Yeah.
writer, right? And this is what I mean by like you watch it and there's not one reservation, one thing in your head saying, no, like this is clearly scripted. Like you felt it. You felt like that was a divorce, like that was a breakup. Great performances. Have
Beautiful
to throw it out
film.
there. Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver killed it. And it was refreshing again because they're part of these blockbuster franchises, and just to see that there's more to them than meets the eye, right?
Absolutely.
That's always
Oh, yeah.
amazing. But yeah, man. So I just want to kind of know, like, with regards to Mandalay Social Club, like, is you posted it's under construction? What does that mean exactly? Are you kind of like fixing some things up?
Yeah, kind of just redecorating, I guess.
Yeah, spring
It's
cleaning.
exactly.
Yeah,
Just washing all the COVID off and
nice.
coming back nice and clean. But it's kind of how I mentioned earlier, just kind of how now, like in the productions itself, there will be a much bigger production value just because that's what I'm trying to do. And
Yeah,
so with that, there's just a new look, new kind of logos here and there, and
nice.
so we're gonna start kind of launching back again, and in the next month or so, like once we kind of
Nice.
conclude shooting on the film, and we can start throwing some teasers
So you're
out.
shooting
And
right now, the short film?
shooting next month. It'll only
Oh,
be a
okay.
2-day shoot
Oh,
only.
nice. Okay.
Um,
So it's a small film, kind of like
yeah,
what I'm doing soon. Yeah, it's like a 1 day, half a day thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
we realistically probably could have done it in 1 day, but it all takes place in like a night. So just because it'll be like
Oh yeah, yeah. You need
outside,
the
it'll
right.
be
Yeah.
light out. Yeah, so that's literally the only reason we're doing it in 2 days. But like you said, it's not very easy. I mean, an 8-page script. Well, initially it was a 5-page script, and then after like improving rehearsals and like adding dialogue, now it's like 8 pages. So it's
Tristan
nothing.
went home and it was like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah,
Stop
literally
talking. Yeah,
double
just like
time.
snapping.
Keep talking. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's more like stop talking. We don't have the budget for this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah,
But
a big
yeah,
thing.
that's what's happening.
That's good, man. Yeah, I'm excited because I was going through your posts and I was like, oh, like you're still under construction, and I didn't know what that meant exactly. I had a feeling, obviously, like I know what that means. Basically, you're just kind of stepping aside, and just going back on your projects and collecting your thoughts, and
Yeah.
yeah, but just bumping up the aesthetic, and there's nothing wrong with that.
It's kind of recharging, you know?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, like, is this have to do with like maybe social media? Like, were you getting a little bit overwhelmed,
Um,
needed to disconnect?
I don't think so, at least not I don't think that was at least at the forefront of my mind. I'm
Right,
sure
right.
because I can't scroll for more than like 10 minutes and just be like, God, I hate so many people. Yet I'm like following half these people that I can't stand.
Right. What is that? Yeah.
It's so weird. And it's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
Instagram is a weird place. Social media, I think Twitter is the most toxic of all social medias if I
Oh, I
use
barely. Thank
out
God.
there.
Yeah, thank God I'm a
It,
late bloom. I'm a late adopter on that because I
it's
have no idea.
just an awful place. I
Yeah.
mean, it is for people who just want to hate people, like
Oh
that's the
yeah.
place to be. It's
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
worst.
Yeah.
But Instagram, I mean, no, it wasn't really that as much as just kind of I felt that Mandalay, like it was kind of slipping through my fingers. Not that I was losing it, but I was like, we need to rebrand this. We need to really recharge this because, like I said, kind of hitting the ceiling where we were at, what we were doing. We kind of did hit the ceiling, and it was just like I needed. If we're gonna come back with something completely new, it needs to be a new look, and we got to be, just fresh and new, and just leave that in the past. And so it wasn't kind of just canceling out because I'm still on my own. Like I scroll a lot, even if I don't post on my own
Yeah,
account.
yeah, for sure. No,
I'm still
yeah, I know you're
scrolling.
active. That's how we were able to connect. That's how we were able to have this episode, everyone, because I don't have his number. So thank God you're still on it, man, or else I would have been getting a DM 2 months later.
Yeah. Oh shoot, dude, forgot about the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Is this podcast still live? Are you still doing it? I
Yeah,
text you back. I'm like, nah.
2029, but I'd love to be on that
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah. Yeah, podcast is too big. We're hiring. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Joe. It turned into the Joe Rogan experience.
Yeah, Daniel just got the Spotify deal, so he doesn't, yeah, he's good. He's good.
There's a guest list. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, you
he's
just
got
see
Jordan
me.
Peterson on this week. He doesn't need you.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson. So I have it. No, I would be the guy to bring you on and be like, ladies and gentlemen, this is a guy
Yeah.
that got back to me 9 years later.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta welcome him. You're
Yeah.
just like, hey, my name's
Remember that
Tristan. What's going on?
pandemic from almost a decade ago? Yeah, that's when we met.
Thanks for answering my DMs. Yeah, man, it's all good, man. And like I said, it's important to sometimes disconnect. Like the big thing for me, my biggest struggle is like I was never a social media guy.
Yeah.
I only got it because like my past relationship, like it was one of those things, like, hey, get it, whatever. And I've been hooked, but I haven't. Then I disconnected. It's just I become like, just on it all the time because of this business I'm trying to create. And
Sure.
I've kind of learned my lesson that because I have disconnected for like a week,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll miss a message from like the IG soldiers or like a personal message or people reaching out, a contact client, who knows, right? And it's like I don't like that idea that when I get that message, like, where are you? Where were you? And I realize like social media, unfortunately, like as much as we hate it or not, it's just the way we connect now.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to have that presence.
Yeah. And you mentioned business too. I mean, like 95% of me having an Instagram is like to promote my work or to find work. Like I'm
Yeah.
literally cold calling artists in their DMs or finding their emails from their Instagram pages. Like,
Nice.
you know what I mean? They don't really have websites very much anymore. And it's a
Yeah.
place to find work and to promote your work. And, the other 5% is for meme pages and sending, funny shit to my friends and or
100%,
whatever,
man. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's about it. I mean, 95% of it is for the work, and it's a good place to find that, but it's unfortunate that it's mixed within such a toxic kind of arena.
Yeah, it's like I've seen it as a blessing in a way because again I can connect with someone like yourself, but also just other artists and colleagues that have helped me kind of create a platform with this podcast, like guest list. Because when I first started it, I had no intention. Like I had an intention where it was going to go, but I just didn't know how far it would.
Right.
And I honestly thought I would run out of guests or just bring on the same 5 friends and talk about the same things.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, like as I realized, like you said with Instagram, just cold DMing just people and reaching out. Like I remember it was the craziest thing. Like when you commented on one of my posts, you made a kind compliment, like great conversation, or very important as a director to think this way. I don't know, something like that. And I was just like, oh my God, like my boy Tristan there, I got to message him. I know he would love to be on the podcast. And, next thing you know, that's what I'm saying, right? Is I'm always trying to see like who's the next guest who wants to talk about, films or really just your creative journey. A lot of people that I learned that, like I've gotten entrepreneurs and real estate agents that are my friends or also former colleagues. And you can learn a lot from them. Like it doesn't have to always be about film. It's kind of interesting, right? Because we're all trying to make it in our own way, right? And we're all trying to, just make sense of the world. It's a great time, but it's also a crazy time, and not just with the pandemic. It's overwhelming. Like we don't know. Everyone wants to do this and they want to do that, and then they want, like back then, everyone just had one path. And I feel like that's just something that affected me for sure. I was joking around with you about before the podcast about the identity crisis, but that was something that I was going through, man. Just something that I was kind of like just experiencing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like I feel that probably like every other day. Not every day, but every
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
it's like God. Thanks
for being honest.
Yeah, it's like this sucks. I was like, I should have just like been a lawyer, like I intended to. Like, why am I doing this to myself? But it's it's weird. But I feel like that's just natural, and I feel like if you're not constantly questioning it, then you probably don't care about it.
Yeah.
So I always just try to keep that. I feel like always the most arrogant people in terms of whatever it may be, whether these videographers who claim to be directors, the ones who send off all the work to editors, those are the cockiest directors, quote unquote, to the listeners who aren't watching.
Yeah.
Who are constantly like, I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, no, dude, you fucking suck. Your editor is dope, but you suck. Like,
because you're paying it, because I know you, right? Because you're a filmmaker at heart. You're paying attention to those shots, and if someone is legitimate, like someone, like you said, is getting fancy with the edits, or do they actually have an eye for that story, that vision, right?
Exactly.
And that's what you look for. And I guess I feel complimented in a way. That's why you reached out, right? Because you saw some of my stuff.
Yeah. I mean, like the music videos, like even like the clips. I know you've been working on that one short, and I remember you telling us, you got accepted in these festivals, which is so dope.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
That one hasn't been released though yet, has it?
Are you talking about Cracked or Beautiful?
Cracked, I believe.
Cracked. No, Cracked hasn't been released yet. They're just kind of like, respecting the producer, like the co-creators. I think they don't want to release it right now. So I'm just trying to keep it under wraps. But yeah, we're just waiting back on some festivals, crossing our fingers. But yeah, if you saw the Instagram page, those were some shots that they posted.
A lot of stills.
A lot of stills. And great opportunity for me, man. I have to say it was really interesting because like you were explaining about, I was having a moment where I was trying to figure out who am I? Am I a director? Am I a videographer? Or who do I want to be pegged as? Right? Because I don't want to be known as a videographer. And I was afraid of that. And I remember at a networking event, there was like a senior kind of videographer that warned me, and he said, listen, everyone wants to be a director at some point in this industry. But unfortunately, they get pigeonholed into something because they don't expand or they don't kind of voice what they want. Right. And I said to my head, I'm like, that's not a Tarantino move. Like I got to put, you know what I mean? Like if I want to be like Tarantino level, because that's my definition of making it, like that kind of like writer director, right? Like that brand. And I said, I got to make my voice heard. So when I would connect with people, I would always tell them like, listen, I'm a cinematographer, but I'm also a director. And if I come on board, like I'm going to be directing this film. And you prove yourself through the storyboarding, through explaining it, that they see that, wow, this guy actually has a vision for the story. It's not just shot A, shot B, shot C, done. You know what I mean? It's okay, why are you doing this shot? Or why is this shot that? So I'm really excited that for you to watch this film, man. And I'd love to hear your feedback, because you'll see in the shots, like everything kind of has a reason. Because I did the cinematography for it, right? So you'll understand, like, with the gimbal, God bless that Ronin-esque gimbal. I love it. Greatest investment, right? I know. Like you just see so many filmmakers have it, and that's really all you need. Like again, if you don't believe me, it's a bit pricey. Save up, scrap the PS5, save up,
invest in yourself.
Invest in yourself. And I'm telling you, it's best. All you need is a camera, a good lens, and that gimbal, and you're solid. The shots you can pull off, it's insane.
It's absolutely absurd.
And by the way, if any filmmaker is listening, struggling to make their first project or doesn't know how to go from there, you don't always need a scripted story. I'm a firm believer, like Alfred Hitchcock. When you're starting out, or if you're a true storyteller, do it through visuals and with music.
Yeah.
Like when I was first making my film, they weren't the greatest, but the best way to understand how films and stories, I should say, are constructed
Yeah.
is like you film the shots, but then you use the music to tell the story. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
people don't need writing. People that can kind of understand through the body language, like what's happening. And I think that just forces you, because show don't tell, golden rule of cinema, right? And the more you tell than show, that's when you know that you don't know. That's when they can detect you don't know what you're doing.
100%. And I love that. And like, that's why I don't like wordy stuff. I hate when people explain stuff in a movie. I hardly even remember the characters' names, like by the end of it.
Yes,
Like,
yes, yes.
cool, but I remember the shot. I remember the moment. I remember how it made me feel. I remember that forever.
Right.
But, I don't remember his name. A lot of even plot points. Many times I don't even remember. I was like, oh, that happened? I was like, I don't know. But did you see that one shot, dude? That was spooky because of this and the light and the, whatever. But
It's so crazy. Yeah. Like, for example, like when you were saying that, like one thing that comes to mind is I'm the kind of person where I love the shots so much. Like I'm such a firm believer in, you gotta have an aesthetic shot, and because it speaks 1,000 words, right? Like a nice picture. And, the Dark Knight and like Stranger Things, like those just like shots that from all forms, like film, television, where I'll search on YouTube and I'll just watch the scene like a
yeah,
crazy person. Like I won't
yeah.
even watch the movie. I'll just watch like the opening of Dark Knight.
Over
I'll
and
just
over.
watch it over and over again, like and then like they're like going down the skyscrapers, and like the Joker's like, just the way he's like walking and observing everyone like picking each other off.
Right.
It's just the rhythm of it, the pacing, and
Yeah,
that's all you need. Like that's your education. I'm
exactly.
not trying to denounce film school, but I'm a guy that didn't go to film school, and like my hero Tarantino, I hope like that's my belief. One day I can
Yeah,
say, hey, this is proof, like my hero before me, that you don't need to. You just need to
yeah,
collaborate and connect with the right people, right?
yeah. And I'm sure, like, I feel like the best part of film, like, I didn't go to film school
Right.
either.
Nice.
But
There
I,
you go.
I feel like the best thing you could probably get out of it is maybe the networking, like just meeting other people who are
Yeah. Yeah.
like-minded. But you don't need, like, again, like you mentioned, like I think of my favorite filmmakers too. I was like, they didn't go to film school. Like maybe some did here and there, but many, like Paul Thomas Anderson, dropped out after like 2 days. Like,
2 days. Wow.
you
The
know,
the
a lot
the
of these
best
people don't go, and it's
and the
not as
best filmmakers like Scorsese, right? Like he went. I know he went to NYU, I think. But you can almost tell that he went. He kind of turned it around. Like he didn't kind of go and just came out like a cookie cutter director, or he just tried to find a job as like, I don't know, a gaffer. You know what I mean? Like a full time gaffer.
Yeah,
Like he in his masterclass, because I took it, was explaining, but it beautifully put. He's like, I get this question a lot. Do you need to go to film school to become a filmmaker? And I'll say this, and I'll say this one last time: to be a filmmaker, you don't need to go to film school. Film
yeah,
school will provide you the opportunity to make a film, but it
right,
won't make you become a filmmaker. And
exactly.
and back to your point about networking, that's probably one thing I regret. I'll have to admit is,
Yeah,
who knows where I would be, like in terms of that. Because I've seen some friends that went to film school and they're like, oh, I know this guy. This guy can help you with sound. This guy. I'm like, oh my god, I don't know anyone. And
yeah,
then it helps, right? Because everyone's in the film business, right? But when he said it just gives you an opportunity, time and again, 95% of kids that go to film school, right, that graduate, where are they now? They're not doing anything in film. And it's because it just shows you that they made their film, their thesis, or whatever they had to do for those 4 years, and that was it. It
exactly.
doesn't guarantee. It's not like everyone that goes to film school like is connecting with Scorsese. It's such a specific niche kind of art form, and the market will decide. The market will decide if they want to hear your vision. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like if they love your storytelling.
yeah. And it's like if you either have it or you don't within you. Like it's
Yeah.
not like someone that's like, oh, I'm naturally born to do it, but like you either have the dedication to it or you don't. Like, and even mentioning someone who did go to film school, like David Lynch, who was like my savior. And I mentioned Blue Velvet.
Nice.
Like, yeah, he
Yes.
went to AFI, but and same with Scorsese, they would have made it regardless. They would
Yeah.
have ended up where they are now, regardless. It
I
does
believe that.
not
Yeah.
matter that they went to NYU, to AFI, Coppola to UCLA, USC, whatever. Fuck that, it doesn't matter. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They would have made it regardless.
And that's what I'm saying. Like with Scorsese, like that he's an exception in a way where, yeah, you could look at him like, oh, he went to film school, but if you hear in his masterclass, he kind of took the importance of it, like the essence of it, and
Yeah.
made it his own. Like for example, like he was, this is what like he was going to become a legend, right? He was explaining like in his first class or his first year, they went from directing films. Like the professor would say, okay, you got to direct, like I'm going to give you a script and you're going to have to direct it. He's like, okay, and everyone was happy, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I think the second semester, he's like, okay, now you have to write your own script and I want you to direct it. And then like literally like 90%, 99% of the class, he said he was probably like the only one
Yeah.
were like, they were all freaking out. Like, why do we have to write it? I don't want to be that. I want to be a director. That's why I signed up for this. And the professor was like, you don't understand. If you know how to write a story, if you know how a story is constructed, you'll be able to be a great director. Right.
Right. Right.
And Scorsese didn't fight with the professor. He knew that. And he
Yeah.
took that lesson to heart. And he said, I'm going to sit down and write it. Now, he doesn't write his own material, but I know
No.
for a fact he's involved with the writer. He's buddy with them, like Terrence Winter, for example, like Wolf of Wall Street,
For
Nikki
sure.
Pileggi, right? With Goodfellas. And you don't have to necessarily write it,
Yeah.
but a true director, someone that respects the story, which I always tell my colleagues and my friends, uh, will know how important it is that that screenwriter can't be cast aside.
Right.
Whether you are the screenwriter or you're working with it, like they
Yeah.
need to be present in the room. David Fincher, Aaron Sorkin, Social Network, they were like co-producers practically. The way they
Yeah.
would talk. Should we get this guy? Yeah, I'm thinking of Zuckerberg. Yo, what about Timberlake? I think why? Because he wrote those words. Last
No.
thing you want is to get someone that can't speak the words properly, and Sorkin doesn't like it. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's, I mean, like you said, even if Scorsese or whoever isn't currently writing or penning the scripts or whatever, it's like doing anything else. Like how we started out, like not only were we the director, we're the DP, we're the gaffer, we're the grip, we're the catering, we're this, we're that, we're literally everything. I don't think you can effectively direct or direct other people in your crew unless you have a somewhat of an understanding of what they're doing. It's
yeah,
like going into a job as like the CEO at like I don't even know what, like some,
Amazon, let's say.
Amazon or whatever,
Yeah,
but I don't know even what Amazon is. I've never bought anything online. I don't do, it's like, how are you even going to be able to understand, like, that may not be your job to package the boxes. It may not be your job to figure out the logistics of getting it to you. It may not even be your job to get the clients. But if you don't have at least a little bit of experience in all these things, it's going to be very difficult for you to effectively direct it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
to make the company like run at its optimal performance, right?
Yeah.
Because it all stems from you, really. Like you're the leader, you're overlooking everything. And I think that's so important. And I just wanted to go back, before we
Yeah.
go, I just wanted to, because you mentioned something interesting, and it's something that I've been kind of like going back and forth with. You were talking about like, that arrogance, like with the videographer, and
Yeah.
you believe like the people that just know, like, think that they can do no wrong and like they're gonna make it and whatever. I want to ask you, like, do you feel there should be that sort of modesty where it's like you have to be prepared for anything?
I think you just got to be realistic at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because I think it's an important thing to have confidence and maybe not to be arrogant, but like, I think of many confident people, and this might be like an obscure reference, but like the band Oasis, they were always known for being the most arrogant band. Like they're
Oh
like,
yeah.
we are the Beatles. We are the greatest band of all time. But you know what? They had the work to back all of that up. They had the dedication. Like they weren't putting out garbage like these videographers and
Yeah.
then saying, hey, look at me. They were putting out some of the best records of all time.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like they have it to back up. And to me, that shows how realistic they are. They're not like someone who makes a masterpiece and they're like, oh, I don't know. I didn't think it was that. It's like, shut the fuck up. Yes, you do. You know it's a
Yeah,
masterpiece.
yeah.
I don't trust you. But if I mean, I assure you, if I ever at one point made something where I objectively thought it was a masterpiece, you best believe I'm gonna tell everyone this is a masterpiece and you need to go
Good.
see it because
Yeah.
this is a great film.
Yeah.
And if I don't think it's good, I don't hype it up because I can't back it up.
Yeah,
And
I think
it just comes
sorry,
from
go ahead,
people.
guy. Yeah.
No. That was just
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like you said what I was thinking. And again, it reminds me, I know we brought up Tarantino a lot, but it's the same concept. Like well, no film of his is bad in his mind. But what I'm saying is like, he is that, like, he gives that conviction, that confidence, because he knows what's good. Right. And he believes in his story. And I think that's what you were trying to say, is that, with Oasis, like being realistic, like don't go around saying like, I'm the best. Work towards the results, right?
yeah,
And then get to there. Like, for example, like the big thing with me is like, how people say making it, like becoming famous and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay, like have that conviction, have that belief in your heart. Maybe you have a shot. You know what I mean? Like we all have that to some degree. I don't know what your definition of making it is either, right? But at the end of the day, to go around, right, saying, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Is that what you mean by like, that's where the arrogance kind of comes into play? Cause it's
I
like,
think
well,
so, because it's a lot of
yeah,
just like talking about it instead of doing it. It's like you
yeah,
say you're the best, but like, and I try to be objective with everything. Obviously, there's
of
some
course,
things
of
that I
course.
see and it's like, that's just not my thing, but I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
But it's like those people, for the most part, not all of them, but it's like I can objectively say, like, no, you are not the best. This is not a great thing that you made,
Right.
you know, because of reasons X, Y, Z, and whatever, you know. But it's yeah, that's I guess that's kind of what I mean. I mean, you gotta have the stuff to back it up, or else you just look like a clown, you know.
Yeah. Cause even like parents, like, just when you would hear like at those functions, or I don't know if it's like, cause I'm Italian, you would hear like, my kid's going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg, like the audacity, like just saying that. And I love your point. Cause it's like, okay, let's say like you do have that belief, like you like the child is naturally gifted, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I would keep that like kind of to myself. Like I would always have that wish in my heart, but I
right.
wouldn't actively go around unless like you notice a momentum. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Like,
I think
yeah,
it's one thing to like network yourself so like people know what you're doing. Like so
yeah, yeah,
hey, I am a filmmaker. So that way they're like, oh, my neighbor actually is like an assistant director to, you know, freaking David Fincher or whatever. So like maybe
yeah.
that'd be a good, but it's another thing to just go around and be like, oh, I'm like the best dude. And like, you know, I don't have like many videos out, but like I'm definitely the shit. And you know, you'll see it soon. It's like, dude, just how about you make something dope and then
Yeah.
show everyone and then let us compliment you.
But even if, but that's my thing too, right? Is even if it is like, because there'll be those filmmakers that create really good content,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But at the same time, man, right? It's like, I still think you shouldn't go around saying, I know I'm going to make it. Because it's like, you never know. Do you know what I'm talking
Right,
about? Like,
right, right, right,
keep,
right.
keep putting in the work and let the action speak. Don't kind of like say, I know I'm going to make it unless you're there. Like Drake and, those people you know what I mean? Like they could be the ones like, I've made it. I know I'm going to
I've
make
made
it,
it.
whatever. Do
Exactly.
you know what I'm talking about? But it's like, I don't know. I'm just a big thing about like delusion. Like you don't want to come across like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's, yeah.
And like you mentioned, it's like everyone's, I guess, idea of making it is different. Like, and that to make it is a weird thing too, because I just like the process of always making something and like
Nice.
not
It's
necessarily the
healthy.
end goal. And I feel like a lot of people are kind of like that. I feel like you're
Yeah.
probably similar too. I think that like even if you made it, what the guy to your left might be like, oh, he made it. He just made his first movie ever. But you're like, no, like I want to continually be able to make films and make a living and provide for myself and my
See?
family and my
Yeah,
friends by doing what I love, and you
exactly.
can't ever let your foot off the pedal if that's what you're trying to do. You
Yeah.
can't. You know, you got to keep applying pressure in order to do that. So I feel like you can never truly make it until you. I mean, unless you get to a Scorsese point where it's like, yeah, I could retire right now. Generations are set for life. I've made the almost one of the greatest singular filmographies of any filmmaker. Like,
Yeah.
you know, who cares?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're not at that point, then it's like you haven't made it, dog.
I think what I'm saying is like exactly your point is like making it, even though you get to that destination, you wouldn't retire. In fact, you would even go harder. Like for myself, like I said, like when I keep saying Tarantino level, it's more like, I'm not like, if I make my Pulp Fiction, let's say, right?
Right, right.
I'm not going to be like, okay, Tristan, I'm done. Like, thanks for watching it, whatever. Like, good night, everybody. Right. I'm the kind of guy where it's like, let's make the next one. You know what I mean? Like, let's capitalize on that. Let's expand the brand, or let's use this as like just coming up with different ideas or collaborating with other filmmakers. You can never, like you said, you can, if you really love it, you can never have an end goal, right? You can always have like a vision of where you want to end up,
Yeah.
but I don't think you can necessarily have an end goal. And I like what you said about the process. A big thing that I've kind of had a discussion with recently is, because I started my own business, there's that notion of being an entrepreneur, right? And I don't really classify, as funny as it is, like I don't see myself as an entrepreneur, even though I've been told I have those tendencies, and I like to think big and take risks and things like that. I always see myself as a filmmaker at heart, like first, a
Right,
storyteller,
right.
a dreamer, essentially. And I get those kinds of like accusations, like, don't you want to make X amount of money by this time, or
Right.
and for me it's more like, I'm being really realistic, like with what I have, my expertise, because I just started this business like a year ago, and
Mhm.
I know like people are making 60 grand a month, let's say, doing this.
Yeah.
But but at the same time, it's like, I'd be happy if I made 60 grand by next year. You know what I mean? Because that's a realistic, like you said, based on your experience, your expertise, and your clientele and your contacts. Hey, if I make 60 grand a month, that's even better. But that's what I mean by like, shouldn't overestimate yourself and say, okay, yeah, 60 grand because I willed it into power. It's like, no, you have to be practical and say, well, how can I get that? I'm not saying, because then you start getting into the area of limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, limiting beliefs, yeah, I'm not, I don't, it's not like I don't believe in myself. I'm aware that it's a hard process and it's going to take some time, and it's a creative process. It's the arts. This isn't becoming a CA, like a chartered accountant, where you take 3 exams and you know what I mean, man? Like, this is the arts.
Absolutely.
One
Yeah.
thing that I like, for one thing that I like, you could say that was shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's art. Like, people, you can't predict that. You can't like say, oh, if I do this amount of projects, I'm going to make 50 grand a month. No. And second, if you are doing that, I feel like it's getting rushed, because you shouldn't be gunning for that amount of
Yeah.
money, you know? And that's what I'm just trying to say, is I kind of argue where it's like people forget that. I kind of have to remind them, is as much as I want to be financially stable, like you said, you help your friends. And I'm glad, I like you said, the friends part, because I watched Entourage, my favorite show, and
Yeah.
just that idea, right? Like, just help your boys out, whatever.
Put your voice on.
The thing is that, like, it always comes down to, I'm a dreamer first. Like, I rather have the dream happen and then everything else follow. You know what I
And
mean? Like, you
yeah.
go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, I feel like those two things really fall in line, because the way that I've always thought about it is that not there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there. Not every entrepreneur is an artist, but every artist is an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
because you are
Well
not
said.
stepping into a career that a degree got you. You
Yeah.
are not stepping into anything that you could take a test to get in. You are doing it solely based off your own strength and your own dedication, your own passion, your own ideas. And that's very much like starting your own business.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, again, the vision, the dream, the passion, that needs to be the number one thing. But at the end of the day, if you want to make it happen, you got to have those entrepreneurial tendencies. And I like, and again, that's one of the main things that drew me to you, because I was like, he's got that business. I see him kind of reposting like that Gary V kind of stuff. And like, I got a couple Gary V and like Grant Cardone books here. And, it's like,
I love it. Crush
I
it. You
don't,
got Crush It.
yeah, I got crushed. Let's see, I
Yeah.
got Crushing It. And,
Crushing it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, 10X, I got a bunch of shit
Yeah.
here.
Nice. Nice, man. Nice.
But I find like business books help a lot, even in getting your vision created, because we are just trying to make it out of nothing with, we don't have a boss helping us out or hiring us to do these things.
We're so vulnerable, man. Like, that's something that I realized as artists. Like, think about it. Like, how many times have you been told, or maybe come across people where it's like, I can help you if you do this, or you're not getting this is not happening because you're not manifesting it or thinking it, or do you know what I mean? Like, they just tap into those insecurities, and you're like, at the end of the day, like, as long as you're working hard, as long as you have good intentions, some like your time will come, or your path will kind of, you can't like freak out about those things. You can't kind of, I hate when people try to integrate business with the arts. It's just something that bothers me. I don't know if I'm a true, like, whimsical artsy fartsy guy, but I never see Tarantino and Scorsese and think, you know what I mean? Like, they're yelling about 10X and, are you crushing it? Are you like, I just see them like exploring the human condition and like just absorbing pop culture. And I don't know, it's just, it's something that just makes me feel more comfortable.
100%. And I agree. And it's the only thing that I do keep in mind in terms of the business stuff is that I have to think it's like, at the end of the day, it's unfortunate until we get to a certain point. It's like,
Yeah.
I have to be able to make this profitable, or else no one will ever invest in me. Like,
Exactly.
it's great. I can make something that like would be a cult hit and like it'll like gain traction in 30 years. No investor wants that. They might be dead in 30 years, dude,
Yeah.
But
That
so
poor
it's like,
investor you're like emailing every day.
yeah, it's like, hey, dude, I don't think people now will really like it, but maybe young generations in 40 years will like this. Some kid at an Urban Outfitters might, discover this movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You
It's on
know,
the blacklist.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I totally agree with you, because there's too much of that melding, and it lessens the value of the art. But I guess
Yeah, it's just a
part of
thought
it
that
can
came.
keep in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a thought that kind of came to mind because, again, I had this conversation with someone today, and yeah, I kind of did some deep thinking, and something in my gut like thought it was wrong, because I hate being told,
Yeah.
it's not happening, or the direction, because of what you're thinking or how you're thinking. Like, we're also human. Like, we have our days. Like you said, every other day, it's like, what am I doing? What is this? And I don't like to think like everyone's always positive all the time, because that's not being human. Like, people, including the people we love, to have their days. And the reason why their films are the way they are is because they've experienced those days and they know how to put them into film.
They're
And
on.
also, as an effective artist, right, we don't want to be people that experienced always happiness, because then we'll never know what a flaw is. We'll never know what an arc is. We'll never know how a character can transform. And those, whether they like it or not, that's what the audience most relates to and will walk away with,
Yeah,
right?
and not to sound like hella emo, but like you can't really appreciate happiness unless you experience sadness. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's just
And
all
it's
you
okay to,
need.
and it's okay to have those. Like, I'm a big believer, like not believer, I'm a big fan of biographical films. Like, I love those films. There's something crazy. It's strange because you watch them and you know the ending,
Right.
but just leading up to it and just knowing, it's so inspiring. Like 8 Mile, for example, because Eminem is one of, another hero of mine from
Mhm.
music. And you watch it and you're saying to yourself, like, you just know he's going to make it because you see his success now. But
Yeah.
just seeing how he was depressed and he was upset, and he even had his own limiting beliefs, he's not going to make it. And he did it because even though he had those moments, that's what I mean by it's okay to have those moments. It's the persistence, the consistency, the dedication. Not every day was going to be the greatest, but he still showed up. And I think that's what's the most important. Like, you can still have your doubts because we don't know in life,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think it's so important to show up and know that you did the best you could.
100%. That's the whole point, really.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I really, yeah, I really appreciate this conversation, Tristan, and
I appreciate you. Thank
you
you.
sharing my thoughts. Something I love doing on the podcast. Just kind of having an open platform, have
Yeah.
discussion about film, but also like what's really going on in our minds. Because I feel like a lot of people just, like, obviously we talk about it all the time. It's Mental Health Month, whatever.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like people don't really know what artists go through. We're just as human, and we have our doubts. And just because you see posts on Instagram, right, you think you're killing it,
Yeah.
deep down inside you could be like very like
Deep
insecure about
down, yeah.
something, right?
We're all very sensitive. Just give us a hug.
Yeah, exactly. Just give us just give us a hug, man. Yeah. Anyway, man, yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast. It was a pleasure. I had planned to do more of these, man, documenting our journey. Love to have you back talking about that short film,
Yeah.
just the process and learning more about your journey. And I would even love to collaborate with you one day, man. I don't know when that be, but hopefully when things settle, if you ever need director, cinematographer, or vice versa, like,
All right. No.
we'll connect, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely, dude. Thank you for having me. And yeah, dude, a lot of fun. We'll have to hop back on once both our films are out and released. We'll have to chat again. I had a good time.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Thank you again, like I said. And thank you again for everybody listening. And we'll talk soon.